All right. Sorry, that took me a few minutes, few seconds. Hi, everybody. I'm an alcoholic named Patty. And I want to start with this because before some people sullied this date, it was my favorite date in the 24-hour day book. And this is January 6th, thought for the day. Keeping sober is the most important thing in my life. The most important decision I ever made was my decision to stop drinking. I am convinced that my whole life depends on not taking that first drink. Nothing in the world is as important to me as my own sobriety. Everything I have, my whole life, depends on that one thing. Can I ever afford to forget this, even for 1 minute? And the answer to that is no. So I'll start that I was born and raised in Connecticut. I had two older brothers. I had a mother who was an alcoholic. I didn't realize it until I got a little older. You know, when you're a kid, you don't really know. But I remember when I was about 14, she told me that the doctor said she had to stop drinking. And I remember being real happy that day. It's real happy. Like friends had said to me things like she had cirrhosis of the liver, so she looked like she was pregnant. And they'd ask me, is your mom pregnant? No. I didn't understand why she was so fat in the belly right there. I just didn't understand. So then somebody said to me, you know, your mom drinks every day. And even though I knew that was a fact, I wasn't expecting somebody, excuse me, to bring it up. So I didn't have much to say to that either. Well, I started high school in September of 75. As a matter of fact, we're getting pretty darn close to it. We used to start school on a Wednesday after Labor Day, and then you have 3 days of school, then you have the weekend off. Well, my weekend went like this. Sunday night, my dad came into my room to tell me my mother had died. And that just totally wrecked my world. I'm sure some people wouldn't be as sensitive to it as I was, but I was 14. My mom was a week shy of 45. And everything in my life, still today, I think it's either before my mom died or after my mom died, you know, when thinking about my childhood and all. So that very first day, I had been curious. I had stolen some alcohol from her before, but I'd never done anything else. And I had been curious about pot. Okay, I know this is an AA meeting, but this is important to me. That day after school, so it was a Sunday night. Monday, of course, I didn't go to school. And then when my girlfriend Lisa got home from school, she and a friend had some pot. That's what we used to call it, you know. Yeah, most of you are probably around my age. And I got high for the first time. And what I learned, the very important lesson I learned that day, is to escape emotional pain. There's drugs, there's alcohol. I mean, I can remember laughing that day after smoking pot. I remember being confused. I was supposed to go to my grandmother's house to get flowers. You know, I messed up the whole thing I was supposed to do. And I was having a good time. And it would only occasionally occur to me, yeah, your mom just died last night. So, yep, that was my lesson I learned that day. I'll tell you, for years, I felt guilty about that. I felt really guilty about that. But it set a precedent. And so I took off and running with pot and alcohol. And I would say when I was 16 and 17, I was drinking quite a bit. Not too excessively, but for a 16-year-old, yeah, it was too much. And I would go into, let's take my senior year. I would go into class, and the guy that sat behind me in drafting. That was my first period of the day. He and I would both reek of alcohol from the night before. And it wasn't every day, but again, it was more than a 16 or a 17-year-old should be. So I had a boyfriend at the end of high school, like when I graduated, and he shot drugs. And I swore I would never put any drugs into my veins because I didn't want to become addicted to anything. Little did I know that I was already emotionally addicted to alcohol. I wrecked 2 cars before I was 20. I wrecked my dad's Buick station wagon, and I told him that I was going into my boyfriend's driveway too fast, and I hit his fence. My brother said to me later, like a day or two later, he looked at it and he said, "There's no way that was hitting the fence going into his driveway. I see telephone pole all through there." And the car, it was a station wagon. It was wrinkled from the headlight all the way to the tail light. I remember the side mirror was hanging down. I think I had trouble getting out of the front door. I was just wrecked. I got to my boyfriend's house and I'm freaking out. How am I going to lie to my father? What am I going to tell him this time? Because, you know, I was always lying to get myself out of trouble. So that's when I told him that story. He said, "Did you go to," no, the first one I said was, I was parked in New Haven and somebody hit me. "Did you go to the police?" "No." "You did it, didn't you?" "Oh my God. Yeah, I did it going into Steve's driveway too fast." I just didn't want him to know that I was drinking and driving. I tried to protect my father because my mom had died from alcohol. I thought I had to protect him from what I was doing. My brother got married in 1976. So this is it's less than a year after my mother died. And it was an open bar, you know, like a lot of weddings are. And I would go up and I'd get a drink, and I had a couple. And then I was sitting with my brother, one brother was 6 years older than me. The one that had just gotten married was 10 years older than me. I was sitting with the one that was 6 years older than me. And I said, "I got to do something." So I brought half my drink over to my father. I said, "I can't finish this. Do you want it?" I was scheming at 16, 17. And then I went back and got another drink. I was doing all this, I thought, in my head to save my father's feelings so he wouldn't have to worry about me. Okay, so there was this girl I was going to go into the Navy with on the delayed. No, we were talking in distributive education class. And we talked about how we wanted to join the Navy. And then I went to her going away party because she was actually going in the Navy. And I couldn't believe it. I said, "Oh my gosh, you're really going in?" But, you know, I got so loaded. I was late for work the next day, which was a common thing. I lived in a railroad flat with my girlfriend, and I had clocks on different sides of the room. Like I would have to get up and go turn them off, the alarms. And, you know, it still was tough to get up. So there was a guy that worked in the tool crib that took all the calls of people that were calling out. And his name was Herman. And I remember saying to Herman, "Can you cover for me?" "Sure." So I had an enabler there. You know, he would say something like, "Yeah, she called," but I don't know what excuse he gave. But I got to work that day after Leslie's going away party. And I was sitting there with a hangover thinking, I can't do this anymore. I just can't do this anymore. My life seemed to be going nowhere. I was 20 years old and I had thoughts of, if this is what life is like, You know, I just want to live. This is a 20-year-old's thought. I just want to live till I'm 40, see my first grandchild, then I'm happy to die. I don't know where I got such ideas, but I was miserable. You know, I'd wake up hungover, depressed. You know, the old, I'm not going to drink again today. And then you start feeling a little better and people are going out after work. And before you know, you're going out again. So that day, I'm sitting at work. I can't do this anymore. I'm coming to work hungover. I'm coming to work late every day. What can I do? And then I thought, I can join the Navy just like Leslie did. So that day after I got out of work, I went down to the recruiter's office and I walked in the door and he said, can I help you? I said, yeah, I want to join the Navy. You know, no resistance. Okay, come on in, sit down. I mean, I started signing papers that day. That was in September of 1981. And, you know, it was the best thing I ever decided to do. Even though it was kind of like in a hangover, drunken stupor, but it was the best thing I ever did. I was on the delayed entry. I didn't go in until December. And at some point later in September that month, I was talking with a friend. He was a guy friend, and we weren't romantically involved or anything, but he was one of my best friends there at work. And I noticed he wasn't coming over. He wasn't calling me anymore. And so I said, Gene, can you talk to me? He said, yeah, I'll come over. So he came over. I remember we were sitting on the front porch and I said, you don't come around anymore. He said, I don't like seeing what you're doing to yourself. And I guess I should have known, but I didn't realize how obvious it was to others. My father didn't know because I didn't live with him. I moved out right after high school so I could party the way I wanted to. I didn't go to college because I thought drinking would get in the way of college. So when Gene said that, I remember I had a beer in my hand and I just threw it over the porch. I don't need that. I don't need that. So it was too late with me and Gene. He was already upset with me and, you know, he had nothing to trust me by. So I quit for a month. I'll show everybody. I don't have a problem. So I quit for a month. I didn't quit the pot smoking, but I quit alcohol. And I remember every morning waking up and my head was getting clearer and clearer. And it wasn't hurting in the morning. I could hear the birds singing. I distinctly remember that, how good I felt. And on day 31, what do you think? I'm drunk again because I was just quitting for that month to prove I didn't have a problem because I knew what an alcoholic was. My mother was an alcoholic. She drank Manhattans. I never had a Manhattan. She drank every day. I didn't have to drink every day. And I went a whole month without drinking. So I don't have a problem. But then I'm getting closer to having to go in the Navy. December 1st was the day I reported to the AFES station to be flown down to Orlando to boot camp. And I do remember waking up in boot camp the next morning in the barracks thinking, what have I done? Oh my gosh. I'm sure many people have that feeling, but yeah, it was a lot to deal with because now I'm forced to be sober. I remember one time, probably 3 or 4 weeks in, they had what they called the C store. And that's where you could buy various sundries and geedunk, as they call junk food. And I bought Midol because I knew it had caffeine in it. And I wanted to do something to change my state of mind. And that was the only thing I could legally do, was buy Midol. I was just so used to the other way of living. So somehow I graduated from boot camp. Our company took top honors. We got all our flags twice. And I have to say, it was very prideful. It was listening to the music while while we're marching across the field, I had a great sense of pride that day. And, you know, the partying went on. Now I was going to basic electricity and electronics school, which was also in Orlando. And, you know, drinking every night. The same life I tried to get away from. And guess what? I took me with me. So I was drinking every night. And we had to go through this class or course called Navy Alcohol Safety Action Program, or NASAP, because the Navy abbreviates everything, has acronyms. And so going through NASAP, I remember they had a guy come in that was a member of AA. And he was telling us his story. I don't remember a single thing he said, but I do remember being fixated on what he was saying. I was really drawn in. I thought, wow, this does sound like me a little bit. This is familiar. So I remember thinking, I should probably go try to find an AA meeting. So that night, before I went out, I told all my drinking friends. I hadn't known them for very long. You know, I'd just gotten out of boot camp. Yeah, I'd gotten out of boot camp January 28th. So here it was, February 22nd. And okay, I'm going to go find a meeting. So I went over to the recruit side of the base, and there's a dental clinic, and that's where it was supposed to be. Well, I walked on the outside of the building. Nobody was there welcoming me in. So I thought it must not be here. I was just scared. I was scared to go by myself. And I didn't see anybody. So I thought, well, maybe it's not really here. So the next day, we had to fill out one of those 20 question forms during NASAP about our alcohol drinking. And I guess I answered enough yeses to ring a bell for somebody, because they had me talk to a counselor the next day. So this is the very day after I went looking for a meeting. And so I went in and sat in his office, and he told me his name was Norris. And he asked me about my drinking. And he said, you have hangover? No, he said, you have blackouts? I said, yeah. He said, how many? I said, I don't count them. I don't know, quite often. And he said, how many drinks does it take to get you drunk? You know, the usual kind of questions. And then he confided in me. I felt like it was confiding in me. He told me that he was a member of AA. And he thought that would be good for me to do that. And, you know, I knew that day I could lie. If I wanted to keep drinking, I could lie. But you know what? This is what I wanted. And the way I always say it is my will, God's will, and the Navy's will all came together at the same time. And we decided Patti would get sober. So I went to my first meeting that night. He said I would go on Antabuse. They were going to get a bed for me at ARC. And I went to my first meeting. Now, I had to get on a bus. No, it was a van with, there may have been 10 guys and me going to an AA meeting. I don't know any of these guys, and I'm nervous as hell. And I get in the van. I said, is this the van going to the AA meeting? Yep. Get in. So I got in the van, and we go off the base, and there's a 7-Eleven, and it's right next to a package store. And they're all laughing, joking, saying, oh, we should pull over there and get some beer or get. I thought they were serious, and I was scared. I'm on in this van with, 10 guys. Maybe it was only 8. It felt like 12 guys. And I really thought they might do that, but no, we pulled into 7-Eleven and probably got a soda or something like that. Then we went to the meeting. So in Orlando, at the time, when somebody new came in, a group of people that had been around a while would take that person into another room and have like a 4 or 5-on-1 meeting, so as not to take away from the rest of the meeting. And they shared their stories with me. The only thing I remember from that night was this guy, don't remember his name, but he was telling a story about after he was sober, he and his wife went to a show in Las Vegas, and for whatever reason, maybe they don't want to walk back and forth during the show. If you ordered a Coke, you'd get 3 Cokes. If you ordered a vodka and tonic, you'd get 3 of them. So the waitresses don't have to interrupt the show. So he got his Cokes. His wife got her alcohol drinks. I don't remember what it was. But when they were leaving, he had finished his Cokes and she only had like 1.5 of her drinks. And so he said to her, "Aren't you going to finish that?" And she said, "No." And he said, "It's paid for. Why aren't you going to finish it?" And you know what? That hooked me right there. I said, "Oh my God, that is so me." If I was with a friend that didn't finish their drink, I probably would finish their drink. I chewed up the ice cubes because I figured the alcohol had seeped into ice cubes, so I had to chew them up too. It was all for effect. I always said that I wanted to get to here when I was drinking. If I could just get here, and then I would get there and, wow, this feels so good. I can only imagine what this is like. And then once I'm here, keep going up the ladder until I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. So yeah, of course you drink all the drinks they bring you. Duh. I've even been in restaurants in the past 10 or 20 years and I see people leave drinks on the table and I still got to shake my head. What the heck? They're just amateurs or something. So anyway, after I heard that guy say that, I said, yep, I belong. I don't know if I was able to say I'm an alcoholic at that point, but I knew I was. Cut back to when I had wrecked my Volkswagen bus. I remember writing in a journal, actually it was probably just a notebook, but I wrote, "Am I an alcoholic or what?" I still remember seeing that in a notebook. So I had the idea way back, and so it was that and the fact that my mom was an alcoholic made it easier for me to accept the fact that maybe I had this thing too. So I get back to the barracks and all the girls there, I'm like on cloud 9, all smiles and everything. I found the answer. This is great. And the girls, I remember one in particular said to me, "I thought you were going to an AA meeting." I said, "I did." "Well, you look high." I said, "No, I'm happy." I mean, I was, beaming. It was wonderful. I remember a couple of weeks later, I called my best friend up in Connecticut and I told her, I said, "Deanna, I got to tell you something." I said, "I'm an alcoholic." She said, "Well, I don't know if I'd call you an alcoholic. You're a bit of a lush, but I don't know about alcoholic." Okay. I remember I had told my father and he found it hard to accept also, but he was the one. I went way out of order on the steps. I had to go right to making direct amends. When I went home on leave for the first time after being sober, I had to apologize to my father for lying about the car that I wrecked. It bothered me, all those years. Well, again, it wasn't that many years. I only drank and drugged for 5 or 6 years, but it bothered me. I hated that I lied to him. And it felt so good to finally fess up. And I said, "And I owe you $1,000. Imagine that back then, it would only cost $1,000 to get another car. So what I did is when I was stationed in Hawaii, I paid for his way out there, him and my stepmom, to come out and visit. So I went to treatment when I was about 4 months sober, because it took that long for them to get a bed for me, a billet, whatever you want to call it. And I got into treatment. I wanted them to fix me. It was like if they called for volunteers for anything, psychotherapy, me, I want to do it. I wanted to be fixed. I was just so into it. so into it. There was a guy there in Florida that his name was Bob. And I remember him within my first couple of months telling me how great AA was, what the program's done for him, and, God's in it, and he's telling me this and that. And then at some point, I didn't see him for a while. So I went over to his apartment. Don't do as I say, or don't do as I do as I say. Don't do that. I was, 20 years old, and he was older than that. I don't know how old, maybe his late 20s. And I got to his apartment. I knocked, nobody answered. I walked in, and he was drunk as a skunk on the floor. I only say that because it rhymes. I don't know how drunk a skunk gets, but he was close to being passed out, and he couldn't even say anything coherently. And I was heartbroken. I didn't understand that because I wanted sobriety so bad. I was naive. I kind of thought once you come into AA, that's it. You don't drink again. That's it. And Bob had sold me on the great things about AA. And then there he is, drunk. And that really rocked me. But yeah, so I went to treatment, and I got a little involved with a guy in treatment, and he got kicked out of treatment. He could sing really nicely, though. Melissa by Allman Brothers. He was a great singer. And he got kicked out. And I remember he called me when he got back to his ship or duty station, whatever it was. And he said, yeah, we'll get together and, we'll buy, he was talking about like a keg or case or something about alcohol. Thinking, what? I don't drink. And I realized, okay, that's why he got kicked out. But still, I was naive. I thought, don't we all stay sober after this? I guess I'm a rare breed. I don't know. But I just wanted it so bad. I had what they call the gift of desperation, right? God helped me. I had the gift of desperation. I wanted it so bad. Like I said, at 20, I didn't want to live past 40. So I definitely wanted this. So after I got out of treatment, which I didn't want to leave, of course, my next duty station was in Great Lakes, Illinois. And from there I went, I had to fill out what they call a dream sheet. Okay. My first one was probably San Diego, then Hawaii, then Texas. And they sent me to Texas. And actually, I put that on there because I'd never been to that part of the country before. I'd been to San Diego and I knew I liked it there, but Texas is beautiful in its own way. I was stationed in Kingsville, Naval Air Station. Met a lot of great people there. When I first got to Texas, I remember, let's see, I think I was already 21. I'm trying to think, somebody had sent me flowers. I don't remember what that was for. But I was driving down. No, at that point I was 22 when I was going to Texas, sorry. It's been a while. It's been a minute, as they say now. I got into Houston. I'm driving my little 1970 Volkswagen Bug. I'm trying to keep with the speed limit because I figure they're going to see an out-of-state plate, Connecticut plate, and they're going to pull me over before anybody else. Well, let me tell you, it was probably 55 back in 1983. Nobody was doing 55 except for me. I mean, they were zooming past me. I don't know if you've ever been in the freeways in Houston, but it was crazy. So I went to a meeting when I got there. And today I think about, with phones, I'm amazed. How did I find out where a meeting was? I guess I actually had to use a phone, like a pay phone, and call up and say, where's the meeting? So I went to a noon meeting downtown Houston. It was great. And the people there were so nice. They invited me out to lunch with them. So we went to Fuddruckers. Again, something new for me. The name was just strange, but they had a good burger back then. I don't think they're as good as they used to be. But then after that, this guy, whoever he was, gave me a tour of the city on the back of his motorcycle. I don't know these people, but they're just friends I hadn't met yet. And I was a little scared on the back of the motorcycle on the freeway because he was probably going a little fast. But I'll tell you, I had done that when I was drunk. It never scared me. Now I knew better. But it was all good. And from Houston, I went down to Corpus Christi and then to Kingsville where I was stationed. But there were a lot more meetings in Corpus Christi. So I hung out there a lot. It was an hour away, but unless you're in Connecticut, an hour away. I'm in Tennessee now, so an hour is nothing. And I lived in Corpus Christi and I worked in Kingsville. So I had an hour drive each way. Flat, all flat, all fields. Like, I don't know what they were growing there besides dirt, but there were lots of fields, ranch land. And I remember saying to the guy who became my husband, I said, well, what town are we in? We're not in any town. No, you got to be in some town. No, you're just in county. And being from little old Connecticut, I just didn't understand that. You got to be in a town. No, this is just the county. Okay. So yeah, I made that drive every day. I was actually pretty talented. Because when I would leave base, I would be in my dungarees, and you're not supposed to wear them off base. You can wear them in your car, but you can't get out of the car. I don't know how I did it in a stick shift, but I changed my clothes while I was driving the Volkswagen on the farm roads. I don't know how I did it. I couldn't do it today. I mean, there was no cruise controller. I really don't know. But yeah, so I met the guy that would become my husband at a meeting. It was what they call the Flower Bluff Bank meeting. And I remember I was sitting there and he did a lot of landscaping and yard work, and he had splinters in his fingers. He's taking splinters out of his finger. I didn't know that would be the start of something, but it was. Yeah, so, oh, and I had a great sponsor in Corpus Christi. Her name was Barbara. She went by the nickname of the Queen of the Silver Dollar. She was larger than life, and she was great, and I loved her so much. It was sad to say goodbye to her, and she's since passed, but good old Barbara. Big Red was her other nickname. Okay, so then we went to Hawaii, and let's see. In Hawaii, I met, of course, a lot of good people. There are a few that stand out. There was this guy named CB. He was the minister for the Navy. What's it called? Chaplain. I'm sorry, the chaplain. And he said he was a social drinker. He said, you have a drink, so shall I. So that's one line I remember. And then there was this guy, don't remember his name either, but he was telling a story about when he was in a car accident and he didn't know how to pray, but he got in a car accident because he was drunk. I think it was in a Volkswagen actually. And the only thing he could think of was to sing the song, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. I just thought that was the cutest thing. That's all he knew how to do, to pray. But, you know, that works. I'm sure that works because he was sober. So we went to some roundups out there. They had like camping roundups. Those were fun. I had gone to roundups and conventions in Texas too. All great fun, meeting new people. I went to one in Dallas, I remember, where I met somebody from Corpus Christi that I hadn't known prior to that, but we became good friends after that. And I've just known so many good people. I remember one thing to back up again is because some of these things were important at the time, more life lessons about being sober as opposed to not being sober. So it could have been my first leave home, I went to the softball game of the place where I used to work. And afterwards, of course, we all went to the bar where we used to always go. And I had my Coke. Yes, this is not safe. Again, do as I say, not as I did. I went to the bar with them and we're all hanging out. And I remember one of the guys said to me, "Why don't you go back to Florida and come back the same Patti you used to be?" And that hurt. You know, I knew what he was saying, that, you know, I wasn't drinking with them and partying, but I knew I was still pretty much the same person. And that's when I realized, you know, I don't fit in this crowd anymore. And I had to learn, these are some of the lessons I had to learn. It was kind of easy for me to get sober because I was in Florida. I wasn't around, you know, I was in my play places with my playmates. I was far away from them. So it was easier to get and stay sober, I think. So I got a good lesson there. Yeah, I don't really belong with you all anymore. We have some good memories and we'll have to leave it at that. I also saw one of my boyfriends, the one that I said used to shoot drugs. And I remember him saying to me, "Keep what you got, because if you lose it, it's hard to get it back." Because he'd been sober and not sober, you know, clean and not clean, back and forth. And he said, "Keep what you got. It's too hard to get it back once you lose it." Unfortunately, he died of an drug overdose in 1989. So he knew. I think what it was is he was facing having to go to jail and he didn't want to do that. So anyway, so we leave Hawaii. Now we're driving cross country. We're stopping at meetings. I remember going to a meeting and we had a little coffee pot with us. So I said, "Can I plug my coffee pot in and make some coffee for our drive?" "Sure, go ahead." You know, just AA was just a part of my life. I had a daughter and I was pregnant with a son at the time we were moving back from Hawaii. We stopped in Texas to visit his family. Then we went up to Connecticut. When my kids were young, the second one was a son. So Shelly was born in 85. Jarrett was born in 87. And I can remember my son getting in the vehicle, holding onto the steering wheel. "Where are you going, Jarrett?" "I'm going to a meeting." It was just, that was life. You know, that was life as they were growing up. At some point, the magic died with me and Ernie, and we got divorced. But I remember somewhere around then, my kids were like teenagers or starting close to teenager. Shelly was, Jarrett wasn't quite yet, but I remember Jarrett saying to me and Ernie, we stayed friends. He said, "You know, I would have never liked you when you were in school because, you know, knowing that we were drunks and everything, I just would not have liked you." I said, "Are you kidding me? We were cool. I don't know what your problem is, but we were cool." But my two older kids had decided to do that straight edge program. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's where they decide they're, you know, going to stay sober and no drugs, no alcohol. And I think my son, he's told me in the past 10 years, he said, "Yeah, I did get high with Max a couple of times, but that's it." He doesn't drink. My eldest, who will be 37 in December, has never drank, has never used any drugs. I couldn't be luckier as far as that goes because I didn't deserve kids like that. Now I have a 20-year-old who's in college. She has 2 fake IDs. I know about this. So yeah, I have a 37-year-old with 1 son. I have a 25-year-old son with 4 kids and 1 on the way. And then I have my 20-year-old going to University of Alabama. And she has 2 fake IDs. And you know, there's not a damn thing I can do about it. And all I can think of is that my God took care of me. Her God's going to take care of her. And that's all I can do, you know, pray for her. And, you know, she knows her father, his name is Alan. He is Alan, not was. He's not an alcoholic, but he's a Native American from Canada. And more than half his family are drunk people. So Alan saw all that. And when he first met me, he knew I was sober. So he said he was going to quit drinking. So when he first met me, he quit drinking. But I've seen his brothers in action and his sister. And so Kaylin comes from it on both sides also. And she just knows where the help is if she ever gets to that point. I haven't seen that yet. But, you know, I get a little wary. Because, you know, after the football games, it doesn't even have to be a football game. I know she goes to the bars a lot. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Another thing backing up is when I first got sober, you know, and I started doing the same things that I had always done. And I thought, I'm sober now. Why am I doing these things? You know, being drunk used to be my excuse to get away with bad behavior. Or maybe not bad, just behavior. And then I realized that without working the steps, you don't change. And so I did work the steps. I don't remember yes, Elizabeth. Elizabeth was my sponsor that took me through the 4th step. She was from New Jersey, and that was when I was in Illinois. But now I'm pretty active here in Rogersville. We don't have a lot of meetings in Rogersville. I moved from Connecticut 9 years ago because Tennessee is a real nice place to retire to. My husband's friend had horse property down there. He and his wife owned horse property. And so Jeff got a bunch of his friends together. They trailered motorcycles down. They rode their motorcycles all around the area, you know, within 100, 200 miles. And when Glenn came back, he said, do you want to retire in Tennessee? I said, yeah, I do. That was before I had any grandkids. Now it's a little tougher because I keep going back and forth. It's tough to be away from them. But Rogersville is a small little town. So even being from Connecticut, which is a small little state, there's a lot of meetings. Not so much in Rogersville. We do have 3 meetings a week where I see the same people pretty much at every meeting. I can venture out to Kingsport, which is 45 minutes away, or Morristown, which is 40 minutes the other way. And I do that occasionally, but you know, I do some Zoom meetings. I'll tell you, COVID was good for that reason, if nothing else, giving us the possibility of these Zoom meetings, because I think this is great. I've been to meetings in Ireland, Newfoundland. Oh, I actually went to a real meeting, a live meeting in Newfoundland. I don't know if you've ever had the chance to be there, but all the accents are different there. Like you have your Irish brogue and you have your Canadian A. And I mean, just so many different accents. It was, anytime I travel, I want to go to a meeting. I want to meet new friends. I want to hear new things, new ideas. I'm not the most well-spoken AA speaker. You know, I listen to these, well, they're not really tapes anymore, are they? They're on discs or, I mean, thumb drives. I listen to these people, they just have a gift. I don't have that gift, but I do have the gift of sobriety. And for that, I am so thankful. You know, sometimes in the past, or even now, I think, you know, if things were going bad, I remember after having kids, I could understand that song by the Rolling Stones, Mother's Little Helper, you know, like some pills to get you by or something. I understood it. But I'll tell you what, I know what it's like to lose a parent due to drinking. And my kids do not deserve that at all, no matter what. If I didn't want to stay sober for myself, I was going to stay sober for my kids, because I didn't deserve to lose my mother at such a young age, and they certainly don't deserve that. And, you know, I'm just very lucky. I thank God every day. Thank you for my sobriety. Thank you for everything I have. But first and foremost is my sobriety. And that's why I introduce myself as I'm an alcoholic named Patti, because I can change my name. I cannot change the fact that I'm an alcoholic. And I guess that's it. So thanks for listening. You're still muted, Karen.